Welcome back to Red and Blue. Former President Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records. Trump is now the first former president to face criminal charges following his arraignment in New York City today. For more, let's bring in Nancy Cordes, Nikole Killian, and Nicole Sganga. Nancy is CBS News chief White House correspondent, joining me here in New York. Nicole is CBS News congressional correspondent, joining us from Washington. And also in Washington, the other Nicole is CBS News security and justice reporter. Nicole Sganga, I want to start with you because I know you have been poring over all of these documents today. What stood out to you about what we learned today from this indictment?
Yeah, Caitlin, I have them right here. Trump charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records under Article 175 of New York Penal Code. I want to point out to viewers, in case they're confused, we're not talking about 34 different crimes here, but each account represents a separate instance of alleged misconduct here. And the indictment has some new information, although we did know the general contours: false entries into the Trump organization's ledger, checks paid to, Cohen back in 2017, Michael Cohen, the former president's then attorney, that are falsified. They're called reimbursements for legal services. Of course, they're not. Essentially, sort of painting this 2-year scheme to catch and kill, identify and suppress negative information, blocking or potentially blocking, then candidate Trump's road to the White House. One new detail that was interesting, Caitlin, a recorded conversation reveals Cohen created a shell company to help make one payment after having a conversation with Trump himself. And in that audio recording, the court documents alleging that, Mr. Trump himself came up with the number for the payment, $150,000. But in this case, prosecutors are going to have to prove that Mr. Trump is guilty of maintaining false business records with an intent to hide some of these payments in the days running up to the 2016 election.
And Nicole, as you've been talking, we've been showing the photos that we have of Trump inside the courtroom. Of course, cameras weren't allowed, but he is stone-faced, and we saw him exit the room as well. And he was also, seeming to be in a somber moment. I'm curious kind of what you make of that. And also, has he been saying anything on social media?
Yeah, so the former president did head to his social media site, Truth Social, as he was on his way to the courthouse, heading to Lower Manhattan. The courthouse seems so surreal. Wow, they're going to arrest me. He went on to say he can't believe this is happening in America. But he was, very brief, entering his plea of not guilty at the courthouse, not stopping to make any statement to reporters. Some potentially, speculation that there were security concerns around a formal statement that he could have made in New York. We do know that he is addressing supporters later tonight in Mar-a-Lago, perhaps more of Trump country, to be back in his home state of Florida.
Yeah, and we know that he will be doing so without a gag order, as we learned today. Nikole Killian, I want to go to you because on Capitol Hill today, or outside Capitol Hill, I should say, because they're not in session, but we heard from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, others reacting to this arraignment today. Let's take a listen.
Today is a bad day for all of us. Today, American politics crosses a line that it's never going to come back from. After today, especially on the basis of how ridiculous these charges are, after today, every prosecutor in America that wants to make a name for themselves now is going to have permission to basically go after someone in the other party.
This is an individual that's a DA of a borough. This isn't a state attorney general. This is something that's been looked at before. And to take it to this level, really to campaign and say you want to indict the president and go in and use a system the way he is, I think it's wrong for everybody involved.
Well, none of this is surprising, of course. These are the reactions that we heard before we actually saw the counts in the indictment. But what does this tell you about kind of how Republicans are reacting to this, kind of coming to Trump's defense, and also, in charge of committees on Capitol Hill calling for investigations?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for the most part, Republicans have been operating in lockstep on this, as they have, when the former president has faced other difficulties. I mean, let's not forget, especially for those of us who have covered Capitol Hill, Nancy included, being on the Senate. I mean, the former president has gone through 2 impeachments and, of course, the January 6th Select Committee, an investigation, which ended up in criminal referral to the Justice Department, which is still under investigation. So, I mean, this is something that has been ongoing for the former president for some time in different iterations with different, facts and different cases, of course. But in each of those instances, in many cases, we have seen Republicans rally to his defense. What's interesting, I think, is, hearkening back to the impeachment, most recently, that second impeachment with respect to January 6th, you have some Republicans who voted to impeach the former president, like Mitt Romney, like Bill Cassidy, and others who are actually now being somewhat critical of this Manhattan DA. Mitt Romney, in his statement today, saying, "I believe President Trump's character and conduct make him unfit for office. Even so, I believe the New York prosecutor has stretched to reach felony criminal charges in order to fit a political agenda," which is pretty notable because certainly Mitt Romney is not one to mince his words when it comes to the former president. Again, you have Bill Cassidy over the weekend, someone, again, who voted to impeach the former president, who has called this political theater. So on this one, we are seeing Republicans, for the most part, being very critical of this Manhattan DA. But yet there is some daylight among Republicans, more notably when we look at the 2024 presidential race and campaign. And of course, we've seen a number of potential hopefuls, people who have not yet announced, like former Governor Ron DeSantis, who have supported the former president thus far as he navigates this criminal process. But you also have people like Asa Hutchinson, who came out over the weekend announcing that he is running for 2024 for the White House and saying that he will, he believes that the former president should withdraw from the race. So there is a little bit of a chasm between Republicans, but for the most part, they are defending him, at least for now, and we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, Nancy, to that point, at least for now, we talk a lot about how Donald Trump is often immune to controversy, but he's faced political consequences for his actions. I mean, he lost the presidential election. Republicans lost the Senate. They underperformed in the midterms. As we're looking to 2024, I mean, it's no sure thing that he can win again.
Caitlin, I've been so surprised by the number of Trump opponents who you hear kind of wringing their hands and saying, but this is helping him. He's raising money. How is he getting indicted? And it's helping him. We don't know if it's helping him. The race is another 19 months until it's over, which is, a little scary to think about now. But, there's no indication right now that the people who are giving money to him, for example, are new supporters, which is what he needs. He didn't have enough supporters in 2020. He needs to grow his base. If the people who are giving to him would have been donating anyway, then it's kind of a wash. There's no indication that this is going to endear him to independence, which is what he would need in order to have a better showing in 2024 than he did in 2020.
And a lot of Republicans who want to run against Biden and not want to talk about these kind of controversies heading into 2024. I think we have to leave it there. So good to see you, Nancy, Nicole, and Nicole. Thank you all so much for joining us.